Hello and welcome back to another episode of Dream Home Renovation. I'm your host Claire, and today we're diving into the critical topic that can make or break your renovation, and that is finding the right team of people to get the work done. So let's start from the beginning. Finding a reputable trade, a builder, is so important, and this is really where you need to do your due diligence. So as a homeowner, you really need to be looking at things like, are they licensed and are they insured? That is an absolute no-brainer. If they're not, it's a huge red flag, so you need to move on. Other thing you need to be considering, what sort of work references they're willing to provide you with. That is so important, and I would be asking for things like, how do they manage issues that arose? Were you happy with the finishing work? What was the communication like? Those sorts, really important part of the step. Remember, you are handing over a huge chunk of change, and you need to be really happy with who you've got bringing in. It's also about personality fit. So really, it's important when you start to do your search, look for recommendations. That would be my first step. Go onto Facebook groups, ask friends and family. Can anyone recommend a local builder or trade? Once you have a few names, then the next thing is to call them. You need to speak to them. It is just as much cultural fit, personality fitting as it is, can they do the work? Because a builder might be great at doing the work, but if they can't communicate, or if you don't get along, or if you get a vibe from the beginning, that will only get worse as it gets on, because the longer they're in your home and the longer they are in your private space, and there's delays that inevitably will come up and project scope that will inevitably shift, you will start to feel frustration. And so some of those nuances that you're already feeling frustrated about will magnify. So that's something to think about. Same as anything, think of it like it's a job interview. So once you have your handful of candidates that you want to ask them to quote, not all builders will bother to come out and quote because they're busy. Quotes take a really long time to put together. So there's a bit of reality as well that they want to make sure that you're serious. They will not come out and quote a structural job without structural drawing. So you will need to invest in those before you start getting some credible bids. They might be able to give you a ballpark, but they can't get quotes on steel beams and materials and things like that until they have actual drawing. And not everyone will quote. So that's why you need a good handful of builders, because out of the 6 that you speak to, 2 might show up. And that's something to really think about. Don't just go on the cheapest quote. You need to factor in all of those other things. How do you mesh? How are their references? What other work have they worked on? The other thing you need to do is you need to sort of interrogate that estimate a little bit, and you need to ask lots of questions about what is not included. And this is where people can get a little bit stung. So for example, we raised our house, we were planning to build underneath. We brought a company in to do that, and we had a number of house raisers quote for that job. And the one we ended up going with was actually on paper the most expensive, but because we did our homework, we realized that they weren't the most expensive, but they're the only ones that had included all of the structural steels around the house, which can add up. It can get quite expensive. I'm talking like a good few $1,000s in the difference. And had we have gone with the other house raisers, we would have been stung and ill prepared for the cost that was to come. And that comes just purely from experience. We've renovated over 15 homes. You realize that there are often things that are omitted in a quote. And so it's really important just to clarify what those are. Sometimes they're really reasonable things. That's part of your due diligence to do that, just to know so that you can compare estimates like for like. Once you've hired your team, you've figured out, okay, that's the person I want to work with, I want to bring in to renovate my home, then you really need to set some really clear expectations. Sometimes it can feel really intimidating because maybe you've never renovated before, you don't know where to start, but it's really important to think of it as it's a partnership. You can't just leave it all up to the builder. You need to set expectations as far as how you plan to communicate. If it's a major renovation, you probably want to communicate weekly with them. What's coming in, what's coming out, what materials do we need, when do we need them by? You do not want to have a surprise call at 5 o'clock the night before saying, oh, we've run out of this, you need to have these materials on site by tomorrow, or else the plumbers or whoever else aren't going to be here, or your hot water system here tomorrow, otherwise they're not going to be here for the next 2 weeks. It happens. So you also need to be really aware of that and to set your really clear expectations. You also want to make sure that you have a contract or something that you're working off. Your renovation is over stages, and so you will have a payment in place, and it could be in place for time, or it could be in place for projects completed. So phase of each project completed, which I would definitely recommend over time, because if it's a monthly payment, they might not have finished the work that really should have been required within that month because of other external factors, and then you end up paying more than the work that's been done, and that can put you in a bit of a precarious situation. renovation. So that's something to think about. So managing the relationship between your contractor is like any other relationship in life, in work. You need to work at it. You need to be an equal party. You need to set clear boundaries, set clear expectations, and you need to stay on top of it. Like at the end of the day, it's your house, it's your renovation. So don't be afraid to ask questions, to be on top of it, to really challenge where people are, why aren't they on site, those sorts of things. But regardless of how well you budget, how well you put your timing plan together, things will happen. Employees leave, trades leave, things can come up. Just prepare yourself for that. Miscommunications can happen as far as finishing work, which is why I recommend that you're really on top of it. Sometimes, and we've had this in the past with our experience in our houses, is that sometimes those trades will make decisions on your behalf and they are not the right decision. So that's why you need to stay on top of it. And you need to make it clear at the onset, and this is what we talk more about in the course, is that in our renovation school, who makes what decision and what authority they have on site. And you just need to be very clear on that. So the other thing you might want to do is just make sure that you instill some really good cadence around inspecting work. So obviously what happens behind the walls, you want to make sure that everything looks neat and tidy. You want to make sure that the quality of the workmanship is there. If they are tiling or what have you, you might just want to check in and see how it's all progressing. You don't want to be standing over the top of someone, but you do want to make sure that you get a quality job. And, I've seen some really experienced tilers and plumbers and what have you make some really big fundamental mistakes or big design errors that really will frustrate you as a homeowner, and sometimes that becomes your cost. It's just things to think about. The other thing is, if disputes do arise, this is something you should be aware of on the onset. What is in the contract? What is there legally that you can do? And they're just things that you need to inform yourself about as well. But really, with any relationship, marriage, life, it really comes down to communication skills. And I honestly do think that a successful relationship with your trades, with your builders, come down to really clear communication, making sure that you are coming across and you're working together in a partnership and getting the job done and setting clear expectations and following up on those expectations as well. So thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you missed our last episode, which was all about timing, make sure to check the show notes for the link. There's also the link there for the renovation school. If you feel like you need that little bit extra help, we provide you with all of our strategies, tips, and templates that we've used in our 15 renovations, and you can check that out as well. Otherwise, if you love this podcast, if you love renovating, make sure to share with family and friends, hit subscribe. And if you have any ideas and suggestions around topics that you would like to hear, make sure to head over to Renoway of Life over on the social media and drop me a DM and let me know of any topics that you'd like to hear more about. Otherwise, happy renovating. I'm Claire. Take it easy. Have a good day.